Joseph, I know you said that you haven't been watching the Braves because they're boring because they win so much.
Mhm.
Did you happen to take in any of the past two baseball games that they played?
Yeah.
Okay. Do you have any thoughts maybe? Because we have a Red Sox podcast that we do, but even the listeners of that podcast have been complaining, being like, I am begging you to bring up the Red Sox on Baseball is Dead. And what better time to do that than after the Red Sox play the Braves, and to ask you what you think about the Red Sox this year.
My honest opinion on the Red Sox,
Mm-hmm.
them boys, they can hit.
They can hit.
They can hit.
They can hit.
They can hit. They got some nice relievers who used to be on the Braves.
Yeah.
Fucking
Yeah.
two
By the
of
way,
them last night, Chris Martin
Kenley
and
Jansen.
Kenley.
Wait, Chris Martin was on the Braves?
Yeah.
I only remember him with like the Rangers and Dodgers. I didn't know he was on the Braves.
Yeah. So last night was a double revenge game for your Sox against us. And, got to tip your cap. But yeah, look, Kenley, the guy is insane.
Guy was throwing 99-mile-an-hour cutters last night.
Oh, I mean, where's that coming from?
I don't know. So the whole thing during spring training was, how is the pitch clock going to affect Kenley Jansen? And I went down there, sat on one of the benches, and watched him pitch on. He did live ABs against like 2 or 3 different guys on the backfields. And I took out my stopwatch and timed him every single pitch. He was delivering a pitch within 10 seconds every single time. I was like, okay, all right, yeah, like doesn't look to be laboring, like he's throwing strikes, like velo looks good. And I want to say Lauren Shahadi of MLB Network did something like like when they do like the whatever, like 30 ballparks in 30 days or whatever, when they interview, like they go to like a different camp a day during spring training. And she had asked Kenley about the pitch clock. Like, do you think that this is going to have an effect on you? And his response was like, he almost was like insulted. Like, watch. Like, he knew for whatever reason. Like, how would he know at that point? Unless like, you go out there a couple times and you're not winded, fine. But he has thrown, like, he's been sitting 97 with his cutter. When, I mean, you can attest to this, Joe. He was what, 93, 94 with the Braves with his cutter?
Yeah, I'd say 92.
Yeah.
Do we not remember when there was a day where Kenley Jansen was where he would fire a fucking heater? We'd see 88, we'd see 89. Like that was real, and that was just a few years ago. So like, first and foremost, when I say where the fuck did that come from, I love the idea of Kenley Jansen rekindling his stuff. That is insane to think about. Like this guy just became the 7th pitcher in the game's history. In the game's history to get to 400 saves.
Mm-hmm.
7 guys. He's number 7. And he arguably right now is featuring some of his best stuff ever. Ever. That just doesn't happen. So I think instead of like wondering what, just enjoy the ride type deal. I mean, you got to ask the questions like, damn, like, what do you think is contributing to him starting to unleash this like Kenley Jansen 2.0 from yesteryear?
Like, to your point, Dallas, like the 88, I remember the 88 because I mean, I'm the type of guy that, I'll watch the Red Sox on the big TV, but at night, once you get to the West Coast games, I'm either watching the Padres or the Dodgers, like the last few years. And I saw like the velocity coming down. I'm like, damn, Kenley is at the end of his rope here. Like, this guy was a beast. And then he goes to the Braves, leads the league in saves, but he's still like 93, which, I mean, if you can get outs at 93, then that's great. Like, who gives a fuck?
Absolutely.
But then this year, he's sitting 97, and I say he throws 99. It was the last batter. So like, obviously he knows 400 saves is on the table here. I've got 2 outs, and I'm really amped up to get that 400 save. I think, just like the final out of the World Series, everyone wants the punchy for the big moment. And he did get it, but it was on like an 88-mile-an-hour slider. So he's gassing this guy up at 99. and then gets him with the slider at 88. But yeah, I don't know. I mean, it's crazy. Like some of the things that we've been seeing from, and I just saw Kevin Gausman. His last outing last night. He was hitting 99. Like he was throwing the fastest that he's thrown since 2020, I believe. Like he was hitting 99 on the gun. So I don't know. Like guys are just like, how do you do that? Like how? Like I get that there's adrenaline in certain situations, but that's a pretty drastic jump for Kenley to go from 93, 88 to 97, 99, and then Gausman's just like, yeah, I'm just going to decide to throw 99 today. Chris Sale, same thing. Chris Sale was fucking throwing 99 to Bryce Harper over the weekend, and he hasn't hit 99 since 2018.
There's a lot of before because I think it's interesting just to kind of ask questions out loud instead of coming from a point of speculation, which I don't think is ever good. It's not how you should react initially. I think it's a little more fun just to like banter around the ideas of what could lead to such a velocity increase, especially at this point in his career. But before we do that, I think we just need to pay the respect to what it means to reaching this milestone, because this isn't something that just happens overnight. This takes clearly.
What's moving behind you?
That was me. Oh, my dog, maybe. He blends into the.
Oh, there he is.
Yeah, he's right there. Yeah. But you don't just stumble upon this benchmark overnight. There has to be a ton of viability, productivity, durability, all wrapped in one over a long period of time. And that's what Kenley Jansen has provided really since 2012. It's been 25 plus saves every year since 2012. And then you start to get into 2014 and you're looking at 40 plus at times. I mean, 2015, the next year, he didn't get quite to 40. And there's some years after that as well. But you're talking from 2014 on, it's 35 plus saves every fucking year and punching the world out. That's why it's just remarkable to think about how the stuff is evolving now. And just for namesake, remember, Kenley Jansen joins Mariano Rivera with 652 saves, Trevor Hoffman at 601, Lee Smith at 478 saves, K-Rod 437, John Franco, give me the lasty, 424, Billy Wagner, give me the lasty, 422. And now Kenley Jansen joins the 400 save club.
Mm-hmm. Which is pretty cool. Like he grew up a Braves fan and did it in Atlanta. I think I saw the tweet about the video that they gave or made for Kenley, and Andrew Jones was a part of it. Let me see if I can get the names. And then Cora was talking about it after the game, saying how fucking cool is this that JT's out there at second and Kike's out there and for Kenley's 400th. So the congratulatory video to Kenley Jansen that he got in the clubhouse. Joe Torre, AJ Ellis, Clayton Kershaw, Ozzie Albies, Russell Martin, Austin Barnes, Eric Gagne, Andrew Jones, Jurickson Profar, Jonathan Scope, Rick Honeycutt, his wife, and his kids. That's pretty cool.
That's awesome.
Yeah. Rick Honeycutt was the guy that the Dodgers bullpen coach that after they added the bullpens where they are at Fenway Park in like the 1940s, decided to complain about where they were located because during the World Series, he was like, they're too damn close to the fans. Like the fans can just yell at the players. Like, bro, they've been there literally since fucking Hiroshima.
He's also the guy who tried to cheat with a thumbtack during a game and then accidentally cut his forehead and was bleeding out of his face and got ejected for it.
He got ejected for bleeding out of his face?
It was a mosquito, not a thumbtack, Joe. That's slander.
What's the full context there, Joe? Is this like in one of your videos?
Yeah, I've mentioned this multiple times. I have to like re-look it up to get all the facts right. I think it was a thumbtack that he had like in his glove, or like it was like taped to his thumb, and he was scratching the ball against it, and then wiped sweat off his face with thumbtack on his thumb. So he just fucking cut his forehead open, and I think he either got ejected or had to come out of the game. But it's a legendary story.
That sucks. I fucking one time in Texas, I popped a fucking ammonia cap with my thumb, and the fucking fiberglass in the ammonia cap into my finger, bled all over my fucking finger, and I almost had to come out of the game.
Ooh,
and it stung a little too. Yeah, that was not. But I had I had to have the trainer pull fucking glass out of my finger.
Yeah, no, thank you. Jay, do you have any stories about cheating in sports in your younger years?
Cheating? No. I mean, I have a story of getting cheated for sure.
Do tell.
Sure. Weird, slighted, weird.
Yeah, Clancy and I have told this story a few times, I guess, but for all the listeners who haven't,
was this like the dad was like the home plate umpire or something like that?
Right. That's exactly right, Mr. Maxwell. Yeah, we were on the same team in Little League, fighting for a championship in the title game. I was pitching, and the home plate umpire was the father of a kid playing on the other team for the I can't even believe, even at that age, I can't believe I let that stand.
That's crazy.
Yeah,
I can't believe with how crazy parents are at Little League games that they let that happen.
A ball bounced on the plate, and he called it a strike to essentially end the game. No, it wasn't softball. It was baseball. Shouldn't have been a strike. And his son won the championship. And let me just say, during my less mature years, we made many, many a prank phone call over to that house, demanding the return of the trophy to its rightful owner.
Recompense.
Yeah. And honestly, if RJ Maxwell is listening to the podcast right now, I would request that he send it back, because I'm not too old to enjoy it at this point. Hopefully I got a lot of life left. So yeah, no, never cheated in sports, but definitely was robbed of a title there for sure.
RJ Maxwell. The fact that I know that name is crazy.
I'm glad you're over it.
No, I mean, I'm glad that it's getting out there and more people are not only hearing about it, but remembering it years later.
Have you heard from him like at any recent point in your life?
No, I think the last time there was any level of contact was probably 20 years ago at this point.
Yeah. Yeah.
So, I mean, listen, if I had run off with a stolen championship that my daddy gave me, I probably wouldn't be making a public figure of myself either. So, the trade-off, I guess.
Mm-hmm.
Can we go back to Kenley for a second, though?
Yeah, go ahead.
So a couple of things. One that I had looked up, and then one that Mike Petriello wrote for MLB and Savant and all that. So it seems to be about the cutter, and Kenley had some interesting quotes this offseason or at the beginning of the season about like his offseason workout regimen and like what he was focusing on. And I'm not going to pretend to know about stretching, and he talked about his spine and stuff like that. But what Mike found was that not only the obvious stuff, like his cutter usage is at its highest mark since 2018. His cutter velocity is basically at its highest point in a decade. Think about that. Think about turning the clock back 10 years.
Mobility
on your cutter velocity. And just to go back, he's throwing it about 79% of the time, which is much more like what, like the cliche Kenley that we all kind of knew back in the day, relying on that one pitch. And then Mike found that he's traded cut on the cutter for rise, and that's part of obviously the increase in velocity, but he's got 35% more rise than cutters thrown like at that trajectory basically. And then his release point, and this is what I found particularly fascinating, and I would love Dallas's comment on if he has anything, is that his release point is functionally a foot closer to third base and several inches lower, and it lines up. So obviously instead of like this last year, he's more like this year, and that lines up with more of his release point from when he was the guy that we know in 16, 17, 18 and stuff like that. So and then in terms of the velocity increase, second largest velocity increase on his fastballs year over year from last year, and seventh largest on his breaking stuff. So it's not just the fastball, he's throwing everything harder. So to me, that suggests that's like a bunch of flashing signs that say this is like so real and something that I would anticipate continuing. But
well, he hinted at mobility. He talked about mobility, being able to physically put himself in a position now, one that he's comfortable getting to, but secondarily, one that allows him to repeat getting into this position. And now when you start to, and this is where being in the lab comes into play, right? I can now correlate what I'm feeling with a number, and now I can correlate the result with the feeling, and we sort of have a number to identify what all of that should look and feel like, right? So if I start to feel off, now I start to think about a certain number or a certain set of numbers, right? Maybe it's extension, maybe it's release height, and those are things that you can continue to evaluate. Now you start to get into spin axis, and now you start to talk about spin efficiency. And those are things that you can really hammer out and pinpoint how often you're repeating these things. And so now you're correlating, where am I at in terms of head space, arm space, release point? What do I do to continue to get here and repeat this? Because the numbers are telling me when I do, my profile, my pitch profile, shit is taking off now. Stuff is really starting to finish now. And that's where we get into, for some of the smaller pitchers or guys who might not throw as hard, they don't have that 95 flashing across your screen early. Well, perceived velocity, extension, those are some things that can help mask or kind of put a little lipstick on your 92. Now your 92 puckers up and looks maybe 94, 95, because you're just maybe that much closer than other guys who look like you when you let the ball go. So if we all are the same height, all letting go of the ball in roughly the same area, but for whatever reason, Joey is fucking 3 inches farther out there, shit looks a little different coming out of Joe's hand. Joe's 94 or Joe's 92 looks like all of our 94. And they're like, yeah, but, and what, and Joe's got this little slide piece that just looks different. I don't know what it is. Well, we do know what it is these days. We've got a much better time of trying to identify that. So when you are the pitcher who is identifying all of these things that work well for you, this is sort of the aha moment that guys can have. This is the unlocking that guys want to occur when they go to a drive line or they go to a Texas baseball ranch, right? Or they going to some of these labs and they want to be unlocked. This is what they're looking for. How do I physically move? Is there a way that this can happen more efficiently? If so, let's take a look. Now we get into pitch design. So that's why guys do these overhauls, because maybe I'm not moving like I can. Can we figure that out? Great. Now my shit is starting to move a little different. Yeah, well, you know why? Because you are physically moving a little different. So now let's take a look at the baseball when it comes out of your hand. And now you're fucking Frankenstein and shit. And that's like, when you're an elite athlete and you've been moving like Kenley's been moving, it doesn't take the 10,000 reps to become perfect at this thing, because our DNA just works a little different now. You've been perfecting shit in literally a quarter of the time that it takes other people to, because your body is so in tune with being able to make these small, minute adjustments that have a major impact on stuff. He
used the term opening up my thoracic spine, and
that's what I said, thoracic.
I'm starting to think that my thoracic spine is very clogged. I'm not moving the way I need to either.
You can't move. Like, think about someone pointing their finger directly in the middle of your back, and you being able to pinch their fingers with your scapulas, with your shoulder blades. Some might be able to pinch the finger. Some
I'm too
might
bulky.
Not be able to
I'm
get
too
there.
bulky up in the chest.
Yeah, a lot of
might
mass.
not be able to get there. Like, think about Jared. Like, the mass of his man breast carrying him forward, he probably has a tough time, you know what I mean, bowing out.
Yeah.
But like in all honesty, when you hear guys talk about thoracic outlet syndrome,
Yeah.
what they're, you're moving a rib, you're clearing some space for your thoracic spine to move around. Now you're a little more mobile.
Yeah, it's pretty obvious if you watch him. That's what he's thinking because he does that hip twist with the patented hip thrust. Yeah, I don't know if he still does that, but he was on the Braves with the pitch clock still.
Oh yeah.
Thank God, because that thing is cool as shit. I always love Kenley.
Yeah. Well, I was going to ask you that, Joe. Is like everyone loves Kenley. He's very humble, great guy. Teammates love him. I don't know anyone that doesn't like Kenley Jansen. As a Braves fan, are you sitting there being like, where was this last year? Or are you like, good for him that he's succeeding?
No, honestly, Kenley last year was like pretty good the entire year. Had like one really bad stretch. And it was like a few weeks where he was bad. I think his numbers look a lot worse. And they're not terrible. There was like a 3.3 ERA. Did he not
lead the league in saves last year?
He did. Yeah. But there was like a lot of heart attack saves happening in there.
Well, yeah, I get it, but the fucking job got done, for Christ's sake.
Yeah, but I'm more talking about like where were the 97, 99 mile an hour cutters last year?
That's fair. That's a fair inquisition. But that's why I said, like, so what do you guys think? Like, if based on everything I just told you about mobility and being able to move around, I think it's a matter of being physically comfortable.
Yeah, but I mean, he's also had like experienced back tightness in the last couple of weeks as well, where I think it was his first appearance after he was down for maybe 2 or 3 days because of the back tightness, and then the next time out he blew a save, his only blown save of the year. But yeah, I mean, like mobility, obviously, if you're feeling better, then that there's obviously a correlation between that and the jump in velocity. So it's just nice to see him doing well. 400 saves. Jay Hay, is Kenley Jansen a Hall of Famer?
Yeah, I mean, unless we want to do like a side conversation about should people with 1,000 career innings and primary relievers be in the Hall of Fame? If we're going to move past that and accept that they are going to be, and we need to reckon with that, then yes, he should unquestionably be in the Hall of Fame. I looked this morning actually because I was trying to find like a reliever from the past to comp him to a little bit statistically. And it just turns out that if you look at Kenley Jansen versus Billy Wagner and include their postseason work, obviously Kenley had a lot more of that, but I think that should kind of carry some weight in terms of his viability for the Hall of Fame. They have the exact same ERA, 2.41. And Wagner's innings lead on him is down to about 70. So Billy Wagner is trending towards getting in the Hall of Fame. And I think once Kenley gets there, the door for these non-Mariano closers is just going to be much more open. And that's why I like the Kimbrel thing is so interesting to me. And we talked about that on previous pods, is like Kenley's finishing strong, right? And may for all we know have another 3 or 4 years left in him to get to 500 saves. Somebody noted on Twitter that there's nobody between 500 and 599. It's the 600 guys and a bunch of dudes under 500.
601 and then yeah.
Yep. So just kind of as an anomaly, I'd be interested to see how far he keeps going. But yeah, I think he's in the Hall of Fame, and he has to be considered, if not the greatest reliever of his era, then, I mean, really, really close. And I'm not sure who the better guy is, to be honest.
Because Kimbrel fell off.
I mean, if you want Kimbrel's peak, that's fine. But I think Kenley's body of work and what he was able to contribute on a postseason level is going to look pretty good.
These are 2 guys I remember us 3 talking about 4 or 5 years ago about the trajectory of their path, and it being Hall of Fame worthy, Mariano Rivera-esque, like they're going. And one guy has kind of continued that climb, and one guy hasn't.
It's too bad. At one point, like I said a couple episodes ago, Craig Kimbrell was on pace with Mariano Rivera. That's fact.
Mhm.
He was on pace. I'm getting a call from Fort Bragg right now. Am I getting drafted?
Nah, it's probably a scam. I think the more interest. This is for a separate podcast, but just as my final point, at least on the Kenley stuff, is like, where does the next Hall of Fame reliever come from after this grouping of people? Because if you look at the all-time leaderboard, just to use saves as a shorthand, you've got Chapman as the only other active player who's even close at 316, and I think for various reasons, Aroldis Chapman's Hall of Fame candidacy is on life support. If he was ever moving in that direction to begin with. Then you have Mark Melancon at 262. I think we can move beyond that.
God.
And then, all due respect to Mark, who I know is a big listener with the podcast, Edwin Diaz at 205 would be the next active player. And so I think, like, I'm very interested to see where the closer in the Hall of Fame conversation moves as we go forward, and fewer people are installed in that position over a 10 or 12 year period. And the save and saves stop being the shorthand by which we measure closer greatness. I think that's the next thing to get over.
I think we're going to get to a point where we're like, I've been thinking about this. I haven't put a whole lot of specific thought and really tried to focus on what I'm thinking about here. I know that didn't make much sense. How much
I've been thinking, not really sure about what.
I think that's your motto, just generally. I think that's your motto.
I don't know what you're going for there. That's basically what you just said.
Think about how much emphasis we place on the last 3 outs of the game, right? And I will always go to war for how different they are than the other outs in the game. And there's a ton of truth to that. But it's almost like we have vaulted the last 3 outs of the game over what it's like for a guy to be able to get, say, 18 to 21 outs in a game, all himself. And when did that become more important? When did the one guy getting 3 outs consistently become more important than having a guy or multiple guys who can get you 18 to 21 outs every time they take the ball? That's every 5 days, which allows the guy in the back there that we're running out there for just 3 of them to be as good as he is, because that guy doesn't get those opportunities if you don't have the guy who can account for 18 to 21 at a time.
And that's why I think the era where the save was fetishized, like, from, let's say, the late mid 1980s until, kind of like the present day, really, I guess, or 5 years ago. That's why I think it's going to look even more silly in hindsight, because if you strip away the save statistic, and that's really what we're talking about here, is a measurement for reliever greatness. And that would be appropriate in the way that they're used in 2023. If we're going to strip that away, then doesn't it make something like Johan Santana not being in the Hall of Fame, and a guy and a great reliever like Edwin Diaz or something like that, who's going to end up with fucking like a third of the innings pitched of Johan Santana and not that many saves when it comes down to it? Like, doesn't that make that seem even more ridiculous? Like, if the save isn't what it is, then why are some of these relievers in the Hall of Fame when Johan, who threw literally 3 times as many innings as some of these guys that we're talking about, is not, was like kind of one and done on the ballot? It's crazy.
Yeah. Yep. I've wondered, and I've tried to, think about the arguments, and that's why the statement about me, I've been thinking about this, and I'm not sure how I've been thinking about this kind of came about, because I understand how important those 3 outs are, but I know that guy doesn't shine if he doesn't have a guy or two in the rotation handing him the ball, or handing the ball to the bridge that allows him to be who he is. So just the level of importance that we've placed on the last 3 outs, as opposed to guys who get 18 to 21 of them consistently, has been mind-boggling.
Well, isn't there only one reliever in the Hall of Fame? Is that right? Is it just Mariano? Who is it? There's more than that. I was told that.
No,
Dennis Eckersley is a Hall of Famer, but he had a hybrid career.
But he's John Smoltz as well.
Trevor
Smoltz
Hoffman's
is
in the Hall of
insane.
Fame. Lee Smith is
Trevor
in the Hall of
Hoffman's
Fame.
in the Hall of Fame. Lee Smith.
Lee Smith is in the Hall of Fame.
Yeah. Good old
Veterans
Mr.
committee.
Fingers is in the Hall of Fame.
Yeah.
Raleigh.
See,
The
this is
greatest.
why I
Goose
said that.
Gossage is in the Hall
the
of
Goose.
Fame.
Yep.
Yeah. And
Caleb
this is exactly why I said that, because I wanted to give those guys shine. Thank you.
There you go.
You're welcome.
Yeah.
Well,
Gotcha,
just
Joe.
while
Thank you.
Bruce Suter.
Oh,
Just
my
wanna-
goodness.
while we're doing it, Bruce Suter. Shout
Bruce
out.
Suter?
Hoyt Wilhelm. Shout out to him.
I was told by a fucking idiot there's only one of them, and I was like,
That's-
really?
I think you have. I think you've accurately identified that person as a fucking idiot.
Yeah.
Just my friend telling me that. I'm like, all right, yeah, sure.
Yeah.
Yeah, sounds good. Imagine you did a whole 20-minute video on the one reliever.
They do really
in
good numbers, I
Cooperstown.
bet.
Yeah.
It's not for the
People
right
would love
reason.
that shit.
You should do like one propaganda video every month, like one that is just a complete and total lie, and see how many people just fucking buy it and they're like, "This is real."
Dude, it's so stupid that John Franco is not in the Hall of Fame if we're really going to have this guy. Like, if he's
Are
fifth
you going through your RBI baseball roster?
he's
of guys?
fifth all time in saves and has thrown 300 more innings than Billy Wagner. And like is just, oh yeah, it's that guy who's fifth in the saves. And like K-Rod is
Ever.
fourth. K-Rod's fourth all time in saves at 437. And no one thinks that man should be in the Hall of Fame. Why is that?
That's correct. I don't know. I mean, I feel like because his peak of dominance wasn't that long. Like it was probably what, like 02 to
No, it wasn't, but like
Peak of
08?
dominance.
but he had 430, like he has 200 more innings thrown than Kenley Jansen regular season. 200.
What's his ERA plus?
148.
Less war than Harold Baines. Less war than Baines. He's trash. Piece of shit. Idiot.
well,
He's a piece of shit closer.
that's going to
He
be a
sucks.
problem.
Less war
That's going to be a
than-
problem for all relievers, unfortunately. Let's see. So his is 148, and Kenley's is 162. So he's better, but also fewer innings pitched. I just like I'm not necessarily advocating for K-Rod in the Hall of Fame, but which relievers get credit for being save masters and which ones do not is fascinating to me, because 4 and 5 are just non-starters for the Hall of Fame. 1 and 2 are locks. Lee Smith took like 20 years to get into the Hall of Fame, and he's
Yeah.
third.
I just remember like that was like a thing for the longest time, was that Lee Smith was the Red Sox leader in saves for the longest time until Papelbon broke it. It was like, yeah, because like, I mean, this just wasn't really a thing.
Yeah.
Like the whole having a guy that goes out there and saves games concept is just, we're still trying to figure out what the fuck it means.
I
It's crazy.
played with a guy by the name of Russ Springer.
Sure.
Okay.
I have a ton of respect for him. And Russ played with Lee, and they played together in St. Louis. And Russ would just tell stories and talk about like the presence of Lee Smith and the idea of like, a ball game's over when somebody takes the mound. The ball game's over when this dude basically just like walks into the room. That was the presence of Lee Smith. And he was talking about Lee Smith like he was talking about Lee Smith not getting into the Hall of Fame because people might be so fucking scared just to even comment on Lee Smith being a Hall of Famer, not being and he was like joking about it because that's how goddamn intimidating Lee Smith was. Like just a dude not to be trifled with at all, and a guy who gave off the impression that he was going to come in and rip your fucking heart out and eat it right there on the mound. And you're not going to do nothing about it.
I can attest to that, bro. MLB The Show. Like, he's got a card. And they put him in, and I face him, and MLB The Show, and he strikes me out a lot. And I can attest, intimidating presence for sure.
Mm-hmm.
The
other thing too, I think nerds are gonna ruin the closer entirely because speaking from
It's already over.
close experience here in Boston, like you've got an electric reliever in Garrett Whitlock, and what do the nerds say to do? Oh, put him in the rotation. Like if he's that good, then he should start. Like I think we're just gonna start seeing that. Like
but see, that's what I'm talking about when I ask the last 3 outs of the game and the first 18 to 21. It's almost like the nerds are going, now that I think about this, having a guy this fucking good, instead of running him out there for just 1 inning, wouldn't it be great if we could identify guys that could, I don't know, start the baseball game and maybe get out over the course of, say, 6 or 7 innings? Holy shit.
Hold on.
I think we're onto something, boys. We'll call it a rotation of arms. Let's start the game. Let's call it a starting rotation.
I'm calling complete
Holy fuck.
I'm calling complete bullshit on this because here's what's actually happening.
No, it's already happening.
No, hold on. Not that part. Is that analytics people have been advocating for the best people to be in the rotation or to pitch the highest leverage innings as opposed to the last 3 in the game for the entire time that I've been a baseball fan. And it's been old-timey managers and front office people who had to get moved out of the way who said, oh, no. This man, this delicate flower can only be disturbed when the moon is at a certain angle and it's the 9th inning of a 3-run game. 4-run game? No. 3-run game.
No.
3-run game in the 9th inning. And if it's the 8th inning,
tying run on deck.
10th inning, no.
Tying run on deck. Tying run on deck.
And everybody was like, yo, that doesn't make any fucking sense at all. Why have you been doing it that way for 100 years? And then people were like, oh, yeah, okay, let's just use the best players like in the most important roles instead of whatever this one is.
Except for that gets blown up when your starter is getting lit up in the 3rd and you're like, you know what? Kenley right now. Kenley's good right now. Kenley in the 4th. This makes all the fucking sense.
That's never happening.
It doesn't.
That's never happened. That is what a.
Oh, yeah? Jay, hey, when's the last time you saw an opener getting trotted out? Oh, wait.
Kenley in the 4th is not happening, is what I'm saying.
A couple days ago.
The opener is usually a response to not having enough starters to be able to get through not being willing to pay enough starters to get through the rotation.
I'll let you fall back on that, but that's not going to be your first horse out of the stable, is it?
What are you talking about? That's why the Rays did it that way.
That was a very real like, no, we're going to revolutionize this fucking thing. We're going to do it under the guise that we're going to not be able to identify 5 fucking guys that can start baseball games. That'll be the guys we do it under. But let's remember, you see this roster over here that says 3A on it? We're treating that like our big league roster too. I don't know that any other teams are doing that. So what we're going to do is we're going to run out these arms early. Should it work? Great. We've got other arms that we feel like we can go bulk mode with. And we'll do that multiple times because we feel like this is the better way for us to use our resources. This isn't a fucking, oh, darn shucks, we got lit up yesterday. Here's our bullpen day.
So why are they not, doing that right now?
I would love to ask.
Because they have better pitchers now. They have pitchers that are capable of pitching a longer period of time on their rotation right now.
And I think that it's probably because you're investing in creating or finding guys like this instead of just falling back on a plan that we all knew was not sustainable. You cannot run a big league franchise like that over the course of a decade and feel like you're going to have the results you want.
I agree. And I also think they knew that and agree with you. I think that was a bridge or a temporary solution to try and squeeze the most wins out of the team that they had, whether that's the major league roster and the AAA roster combined or whatever.
So we just talked really loudly at each other and agreed the entire time.
I think yes.
Okay.
Yeah. Oh well.
Well, let me add to the discussion, and as an analytical mind guy myself,
for sure,
I will push the ball forward, moving forward into this conversation of relievers. And I'm looking at the stats right now, and I've analyzed them all. I've run them through the data sets and shit, and basically, Mariano Rivera has less WAR than Harold Baines, which makes me think Harold Baines, I don't know why he wasn't unanimous Hall of Famer, but it seems like it was kind of bullshit.
I think you're interpreting that data incorrectly. I think we need to be asking, I think we need to be asking, should relievers be in the Hall of Fame and not did Harold Baines set the bar too high? Also, what WAR are you looking at, if I may ask? Because Mariano Rivera's got 56 and Harold Baines has 38. So your friend gave you your friend gave you
Yeah,
terrible
your
info
friend has
again.
fucked you up.
Whoever you've
The
hired as your
baseball doesn't
researcher is
exist
just
research
sandbagging
department is not great.
No.
Yeah.
I'm on Fangraphs, motherfucker. Ever heard of it?
Your
I'm on fucking
your
Fangraphs.
R&D department is having a fucking acid flashback, Joe. You should probably get a hold of them.
Oh, to be fair, I did not look up Harold Baines' WAR. I just had one in my brain that it was like 30. It was like 40 something. I don't know what it is, but Mariano Rivera has 39 on Fangraphs, and Harold Baines has loading. We're loading. It's not loading, but I would say Harold Baines has more than 39. Let's see. 38. It's about the same. It's about the same.
Well, that's the problem with accounting stats sometimes, is that when you play for 40 seasons as a position player, you're able to slowly grind out positive increment movement. As opposed to Mariano, who had the class to resign after 19 seasons of high-level baseball.
Yeah, it's wild though, the way that WAR works, where it's like it just makes relievers seem like worthless. You know, the best one of all time is like going against Harold Baines, who's become a meme because of J-Hay. So that's kind of sad.
God, what an honor.
But if you look at wins probability added, which I think is valuable, right? High leverage situations. Closers and relievers are, I mean, yeah, look at the top 5 right now. I'm looking at it. It's 3 out of 5 of them are relievers for pitchers. So there's definitely value. I mean, there's not coming out in the WAR, but to say they're not like, they're useless now is kind of, that's too far.